When should you quit your own business, or are you stuck in it for life? Is there a right time to say you've had enough? What are the personal signs that suggest it may be better to move on? And then how do you quit? That's what we're going to be taking a look at right now. And it's a topic which I must admit, I was debating about tackling it because everyone says, oh, everything should be positive and everything should be wonderful. Hey, everything's going well here. Everything's going well here until it's not. But it's a topic I think every single entrepreneur needs to get across. Is there a time you should quit? Maybe you've just been dreaming an impossible dream. Is that what it is? And let me share with you a story. Many years ago, when I was in my teens, I used to play a game called Baddington. When I went away on holidays and I had my aunties and uncles and all that sort of stuff. Now, Baddington is like badminton, except you play with bats, not rackets. And my cousin and I, we used to be very competitive against each other. But he was built for sport, and I was this wrangly little tiny kid. And he was like, he had all the advantages. He had the height, so he could smash the thing over the net. He had all of those advantages. There's one thing, though, he didn't have as much as I had, and that was I would never give up. I would fight to the very bitter end of every single match. In the end, I won a whole lot of them. I didn't win every one of them, but I won a whole lot of them. And that mentality carried across into many of my businesses in the years that went forward. And as I'd start a business and I would never say die. That sort of mentality was in my DNA as such. And that really helped me a lot in my businesses where I would never quit. I would never quit no matter what. But there was times that even though I had that attitude, I should have quit. I should have backed out because I took one step where angels fear to tread. And I shouldn't have done that one thing. I shouldn't have launched that product, or I tried to rush something or whatever. I should have just paced it a little bit more. And to learn from those experiences that sometimes it's better for an entrepreneur to quit or to retreat, even if it's temporarily, before you go ahead and move forward once again. So, have you had an experience like this? Have you been an entrepreneur where you said, you know what, I really should have quit? I should have given up. I should have just said, enough's enough. And I didn't. I hung in there. And before I know it, I kept on borrowing more and more against my house or something like that to try to fund this thing, which was never going to work. Until finally, quite often what will happen is an external party will force you to quit. And whether it's the bank or whether it's the investors or someone like that say, we're done here or you're done. And maybe it's time to assess that. So if you've got a story about this, or maybe you had the story on the other side of the fence of, hey, you didn't quit, therefore you actually managed to push through to a great outcome. If you're a person in the audience and you've got a story like this, we'd love to hear from you. It's one of the reasons why I love this session so much, is that it's not just about, say, a bunch of us on stage here, but it's from you in the audience. So please stick your hand up. If you're unfamiliar with the app, it's down the bottom there. You can raise your hand and we'll invite you to the stage, and we'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, so Colin, coming across to you, have you ever quit? Have you ever quit any of your businesses or launched a product you thought, oh no, what have I just done? I've got to quit that. Have you ever done anything like that before?
Hey, Michael, of course I have. I've done many companies. I think anyone who's in a startup has to, any entrepreneur who's done it before, we've all quit. I think we've all had our failures. We've all pulled back. I think it's important to think about a startup in terms of a stage gate, a period of time in which you can give yourself to get to a certain amount of funding required or whatever. But you set those goals and the parameters in advance so that if you don't hit them, then you can do a shift or decide to quit, decide to do something different. I'm actually going through security right now and getting the hook from security, so I'm going to be offline for about 15 minutes, but I'm going to try to listen in as much as possible.
Michael, you there?
Oh, sorry about that. I forgot to unmute myself. Yeah, we were just hearing Colin go through the security there. But I just want to jump across to yourself, Jeff. Have you ever been in a situation where you said to yourself, you know what? In hindsight, I should have quit. I should have stopped that thing that I was doing. Or have you ever been in a situation where you wish you'd quit, and other times you said, "Oh, gee, I shouldn't have quit. I should have persisted. If I could have just persisted, I could have got there." Have you ever had experiences on those two ends of the spectrum?
So when I saw the topic for today's room, I interpreted it a little bit differently. Since you used the word quit, I was thinking in terms of, do you get to a point where you leave or quit your own business, but the business is still going on, versus the quitting that Colin was talking about, where you're starting a business and you're recognizing that maybe it's not going to work out the way you hoped, so you end the business. I took quit to the literal sense. And the one time I had to quit a business that I was a co-founder of, or leave a business that I was a co-founder of, was something that happens quite often, which was after a merger or acquisition. So one of the companies I was a co-founder of, we eventually merged with another company. And even though at the time I was the CEO of the company when we merged, and I remained the CEO, it didn't take me too long to realize that the new team, the company we'd merged, was really going in a different direction that I had wanted to go in, and it just wasn't really the same fit for me. And so that was the time where not only did I quit, but I actually quit and left and stepped down from being the CEO of the company, because it just wasn't the same company anymore as we merged in with this other business. And I had to make that decision to move on and find something else and leave. So I have had that situation one time. The other kind of quitting, of course, as an entrepreneur, you have many ideas, many businesses that you get to a certain point and have to come to the realization, you know what, this product's not going to really be what we thought was going to be, or there really isn't a marketplace for it, or we're not able to secure the funding we needed, and unfortunately have to close that business and move on to the next time. So I guess I've experienced both types of quitting, but I was thinking more in terms of the first one when I read the title.
Yeah, yeah. So here's a question for you, Jeff. So when you had to make that decision, and by the way, the two different variations of the title, quite willing to explore both sides of them. But when you had to make that decision to quit because of the merger and all that sort of stuff, what was it like emotionally going through that decision-making process? Did you find it took a toll on you? Just of how do you come to the conclusion you need to back out now and go do something else?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting because looking back on it, and this goes back a number of years, the toll was being taken on me before I made the decision. In other words, after the merger happened, and now I was working, even though I was CEO, I was working within this framework of a different company, essentially, because we merged with a different company and a bigger company, arguably. I just was not happy. It wasn't the company that I co-founded was changed dramatically through the merger. And even though I had an important and active role there, it just wasn't the same. It wasn't satisfying. And that took its toll. When I finally recognized, what, it's just time to move on and let go of this, that was actually a relief. The stress came before that. The act of making that decision was actually a relief, and going forward, obviously, ultimately proved to be the right decision. So the stress was just being in that circumstance of having merged companies and being in a position to be trying to run a company that wasn't the company it was before.
Yeah, you're listening to The Complete Entrepreneur. We're taking a look at the topic of I quit and the broadest expressions of what it means to I quit. And if you have a situation in your life right now as an entrepreneur, you say, you know what, boy, have I got a story to tell you, please raise your hand. We'd love to have you up on the stage. We'll be jumping across to William. But just before William, Jeff, I just want to ask you a little bit more about that. Is that did you have a great internal dialogue? You mentioned there that there was an enormous amount of stress beforehand. And when you finally made the decision that you needed to move on, it was like a massive relief hit you. What was that like, that whole process? And how long did it actually take to go through that whole sort of realization that what you just weren't happy?
Yeah, it was not quite a year, but pretty close to a year of still working with the company after the merger. And it just wasn't, it was a different company, just going in a different direction. Even though I was CEO, I had to do a lot of different things that I hadn't been doing before that weren't even if they were in my wheelhouse, they just weren't enjoyable to me. And it was just, and there was, to be perfectly blunt, there was some physical, geographic aspects to it because the company before we merged was based relatively close to where I lived. The company we merged with was in Miami. So all of a sudden, I had to go from a comfortable 15-minute commute to driving down to Miami and traffic every day. And needless to say, that compounded the stresses of the business because if you haven't done it before, it's miserable commuting down to Miami on a daily basis. So that was certainly a contributing factor. There was additional stress on my family because I was commuting now, greater distance and getting home later and leaving earlier. And just so many factors contributed so that finally, and not being a quitter by nature, I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to make that decision. So I probably stayed longer than I should have in retrospect, because once I made the decision and moved on, I was significantly happier.
Yeah, but correct me if I'm wrong here. You said before you were the CEO of the company. Is that right?
Yeah, so I was the CEO of the company, and this was at the time too a publicly traded company. And then we merged with another company, and I remained the CEO of the merged business. That's correct.
Yeah, the thing I find interesting, obviously, as a CEO, you would have orchestrated this whole merger and all that sort of stuff. And I think that some entrepreneurs need to hear this, is that quite often when you're doing a merger or a takeover, you're selling or whatever, all those sort of different machinations, is that they economically look great. In other words, the reason why you're doing this is because you're getting a bigger slice of the pie and all those sort of things. But the thing I was struck by, Jeff, is that it wasn't for economic reasons why you left, it was for emotional reasons why you left. And so often that entrepreneurs are almost told to ignore their emotions, it's all about the money. But you made a decision, it was almost divorced of the money. Is that correct?
Yeah, the finances had absolutely nothing to do with it. And obviously, stepping away from a secure position at a publicly traded company, more than likely my next move was going to be a step down financially, certainly at least for the short term. That wasn't even part of the consideration, to be honest. It was just I was not happy. I was not doing stuff I was enjoying, and I didn't see myself being in a position to really continue to lead or grow that company.
Yeah, so this story is in essence what the complete entrepreneur is all about. Is because there's so many, even on Clubhouse or you look online, everything like that, and they'll talk about the business side of being an entrepreneur, and they'll talk about it, and they'll talk about it, and they'll talk about how to raise money, how to go along and deal with manufacturing, how to do this, how to do that, all that sort of stuff. But there's very few that tackle the issues that you were wrestling with, Jeff. You were wrestling with, and that is, what does it mean to live the life of an entrepreneur? What does it mean to be that person that has that internal dialogue and to realize that despite all the financial issues, that you've come to a realization that's not for you and that you need to move on. And there's so many entrepreneurs I've seen over the years, they have made all these right financial decisions to find out that they're intensely unhappy. They're unbelievably unhappy. And there's a classic saying, there's so many people that climb the ladder of success to find it's leaning against the wrong wall. And it's to do that it can be quite soul destroying. If you get to the end of your life, you get to the top and you say, "Hey, I've won the game of business. I'm a multi-squillionaire, but this is not where I want to be." Yeah, and it's not against making sound financial decisions. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that there's two aspects to being an entrepreneur. There's actually many aspects, but two aspects we're looking at here is both the financial but the emotional side and the emotional toll it takes when you're making these quite dramatic decisions. And what are the things that actually go and cause you to come to conclusions that sometimes may even be economically not good for your situation, but you're going to be happier as a result? Interesting questions. Anyway, I'd like to jump down to William here. William, I'd just like to welcome you to the Complete Entrepreneur, to the stage here, and to hear your thoughts on this, William, on this topic on I quit. And by the way, I love your photo just there, William. Welcome to the stage, William. It looks like William's not there at the moment, so we're going to skip across to Dr. Bev. Dr. Bev, it's wonderful to have you back on The Complete Entrepreneur. I'd love to hear from you on this topic.
Thank you. How are you all today? It's good to see you again.
It's great to be here. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what does it mean for an entrepreneur to go through that internal dialogue of whether they should quit or not.
That is a great question. And I love the title because a complete entrepreneur makes me wonder, what does an entrepreneur, what would they say? Okay, I am complete. I quit. I just thought about that. I'm just new on acting out the entrepreneur that's always been inside of me. So now that the kids are out of the house and I need to make money, it's why not act on all of my ideas? And I think a true entrepreneur is one of those individuals that wake up every morning with 10 ideas that they could write down on a piece of paper that solve a problem or something they were thinking about that might help someone or help this person, or write in and say this product could be better. And that has always been me. And so now it's time that I'm an empty nester and I can go ahead and focus on what I want to do and then maybe make a business out of it. I've noticed in the last year I have gone all in on my first business, the Smart Digital Kids business, at the cost of my relationship with my husband. And I don't know if this is going to add value to people in the room, but I think that the entrepreneurs that I've watched and known over the years, the ones that feel like quitting but don't, sometimes do so at a sacrifice that they don't realize. And marriages end or relationships are strained with children. And I've learned that in my 52 years just watching. So now that it's my turn to begin a business and watch it grow and maybe have an acquisition and an exit, to be careful and decide first before I begin how far I'm going to get in and is it worth it and is it time to quit? And I'm at that point, Michael. I'm at that point where my husband came to me and said, "Okay, it's been a year and we're not getting any money. We've already bled out 15,000. I'm done. I'm done. You love this kind of company more than me." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. No, okay, I quit." So I didn't quit my company. That was another something I think Jeffrey was saying. I didn't quit my company, but I quit what I'm doing right now in the company, in the product that I'm doing. So I'm not trying so hard, and I am going to get part-time work as a marketer. So I'm defaulting back to what I can do to make money right away. Go into marketing, do my marketing bit. Even though it pains me because I'm an entrepreneur and I want to be working for myself and I want to be building my future dream company, but I needed to quit, and this is a broad sense, right? Broadly defined. I needed to quit right now where I'm at today for 6 months or whatever, pursuing it and forcing it because it wasn't working. And it seems right when I did that, I got a speaking engagement. And so that's going to bring in a little bit of money. And so I think that's something that entrepreneurs, we get focused and it's got to go this way. We have it all laid out. We've got 14 moves ahead. Let's play this game of chess. And it might go a different way than we think. And I'm not going to quit. So I love the title because you can interpret it many different ways. I'm not quitting, but I'm resting to decide, do I need to let go of that product? Because I have had a first product. I'm thinking maybe that's not the one. Maybe I need to sit back, find another product, and move in a different direction. But anyway, that's me as an entrepreneur. I think that a complete entrepreneur, I don't think they ever quit. We can't quit on ourselves. We can't quit on our minds and the way that they work. And I hope I never reach that stage where I quit. I'm going to work for somebody else, or I'm going to go chase the money because I didn't fulfill what was inside of me and who I am. That's just, hopefully I provided some type of value. But thanks for this room. I always love coming here. This is Dr. Beverly. I'm complete.
Can I just say, Dr. Bev, it's really great to hear from you. And thank you very much for being so open and honest in the room here. And it's a pleasure having you here as well. Love to hear from you on a regular basis. But yeah, I think you've raised an interesting thing, is that it's like your husband sat down with you and said, hang on a second here. Yeah, we put this much resources into this. We're giving it this much time. And I never see you because you're always working in the business. when's the time? When's the time you say enough's enough? Where's that line? And you do an assessment. Or, as Jeff was saying before, it was like, oh, I'm just intensely unhappy. I'm just unhappy. I just need to move on and do something to make myself happy. Yeah, when I look back at my own entrepreneurial life, I remember when I first got married, how many years ago? We've been married now for about nearly 35 years. We first got married. I sat down with my new wife and I said to her, I need to let you know about something that you may not have realized. And she said, yes, what's that? I said, I'm an entrepreneur. Now, she came from a background where her dad had the same job for like basically the whole of his life and all that sort of stuff, and came home at the same time each day and left at the same time, all that sort of stuff. All very secure and yeah, so fairly regimented. And here she just married an entrepreneur where for those of you who are entrepreneurs, you understand the lifestyle is quite different. But more than that, it's chaos. And so during this journey, a number of times she came to me and said, I feel like quitting. Not quitting me, but in other words, like, quit. I'm going to quit your business on you, Michael. Yeah, because there's times where it becomes very difficult. Yeah, and we need to take that into account that our loved ones around us, like your husband there, Dr. Bev, we need to listen to them because there's one thing that entrepreneurs are, and that is they're fanatical about what they do to the detriment quite often of all else. And so you're going and blazing away at this thing and you forget your kids. You forget your significant other. You forget other things in life. And before you know it, you suddenly find yourself, hey, I'm actually not happy. Or, ah, I missed out on those key sort of moments that you'll never get again. And that sort of thing. It is making those assessments. And sometimes you've got to make those assessments and go with the business. And other times you've got to make those assessments and say, no, you know what? I'm not going to go to that particular client meeting because I'm going to go down and be with my kids. So I quit that meeting. And I'm going to go and be with my kids at that time. Yeah, so I know, Colin, I'm not sure if you're out of security yet. If you just flash your microphone when you are at some point. Oh, you are.
I
Okay.
just got it.
Col-
I just got it to the lounge.
Oh, good stuff. So, Colin, I know you've had to make these sort of decisions quite a lot in your business career. You've shared quite openly about that on The Complete Entrepreneur, where you've made decisions for the business rather than the family and that sort of stuff. But has there ever been times where you've said to yourself, I feel like just quitting. I just need to go home.
Oh, those times when you just want to curl up in a ball and go to bed and
Yeah,
of course, yes. And that happens. I think that's happened too many times in my life. And I think more often than not, it's a matter of perspective and I come back from it. But there again, I've mentioned there's been many companies that I've closed. I'll tell you, the issue with quitting as an entrepreneur, I believe, has a lot to do with what we put into it. We put our heart and soul into this project. Not only we put a lot of money up for it, we've risked our reputation, our identity is on the line. Those who told us we couldn't do it are right. All of these things are going through our mind. And the reality is, we actually had a learning experience. We've actually sharpened our sword. We've actually become a better entrepreneur. And coming to that conclusion, there are times when it does make sense to quit. Now, I will say this. I will say that I see a lot of entrepreneurs who get to a point where they just walk away. And I actually think there is some residual value in almost every business. In that, but if you make certain decisions, you can maximize the value on exit, whether it's selling to your competitor. I'll give you an example. I have many examples, but one of them was a Toronto-based company. We did all the taxi cab ads for all the taxi cabs over the last 10 years. And the business was struggling. Uber was eating it alive. But a year or two before the pandemic, we decided to sell the company. Weren't a lot of takers, so we went to our competitor and we did a deal where we merged with them. We got 15% of the company in a 5-year earnout. Now, it wasn't ideal, but in hindsight, it was good because the pandemic absolutely destroyed that business. And my point here is that sometimes there's ways of exiting without just walking away from it, whether that's selling the company, even going to your competitor. And these are not ideal exit strategies, by the way. Anyone who knows our team here, we sell to strategic buyers generally. But if the business is just not moving forward, it's not delivering, selling that business or moving it along, taking a loss on it, that's okay. It was a learning experience. We all learn from it, and we're going to be better entrepreneurs for it. Calling complete.
Yeah, Colin, I think you raised something really important there, is that quite often the entrepreneur associates their self-worth with how well their business is going. In other words, if the business is not going well, then I'm worthless as a person. And I find that actually really sad. And then you then follow it up with that of, no, if the business has gone down, you've learned a lot from that experience, and you've just gone on a great training course for the next one so you can be better, so you don't make the same mistakes again. And there's some people I know in this room need to hear that message loud and clear, but that your self-worth as an individual is not connected to your business. And likewise, by the way, if your business is going gangbusters, it doesn't mean you're a better person. They're completely separate issues. And it's something that we need to really remind ourselves of. There's a great thing where people sometimes will wonder, why was the fool in the court? Was the fool just there in the court with kings of old and things like that? Was the fool just there to go along and to entertain? Yes, the fool entertained, but he'd also whisper in the king's ear, "You're human." In other words, you know what? We're all human. Yeah, and we have disappointments, we have struggles and things like that. There'll be at times like that. And sometimes we have to make those difficult decisions to quit. But I just want to come across to Rob. It's wonderful to have you on the stage of the Complete Entrepreneur. And so welcome to the stage, Rob. What do you got to share on this topic of I quit? So Rob, if you're there, you just need to hit the bottom right-hand corner for your microphone. And yep, that's it.
Thanks, Michael. Didn't see that there. Hopefully you can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me? That's great. I ran a financial planning business for 5 years and quit that, or actually I sold that about 6 years ago now. And it wasn't because of the money, it was because of a conflict of values that I felt very strongly about. And being the financial planning industry, you either had to operate under your own license, or if you didn't want to do that because of all the compliance and so on, you had to operate under someone else's license. And the problem I found with that, with the two licensees that I worked with, was that they always looked at a financial planner as a salesperson selling a product. And that really got up my nose because all I wanted to do was service the clients, grow the business slowly. And I got on really well with all my clients. And there was a real conflict at the end of the day between my values aligning with the dealership versus what I wanted to do for my clients and the values that I had in that respect. So at the end of the day, it was selling out because of the conflict of values there. And I didn't want to go down the route of my own license because that meant a lot of compliance and I wouldn't have had time to actually build and run the business at the same time. And what else I was going to say there?
Yeah. I think, Rob, you raised an interesting point just there, and that is that people quite often will quit. Entrepreneurs will quit, and there can be an entrepreneur that's attached to another business, like in your situation, where you discover you have a mismatch of values, where you've been told, as you said, that with the financial planning to sell, don't worry about it, just sell the product. So if it's good for the client, if it's bad for the client, doesn't matter, just sell. Versus actually trying to do the right thing by the client, which is what you were trying to do. And that becomes a mismatch. And you've got to make a very difficult decision about a situation of values. But yes, so coming back to you, Rob, what else do you want to follow up on there?
I was just going to say that there was two things that led to that decision in the end. One was a client who really needed the insurance paid out, and it took 3 months to convince the insurer that was the right thing to do because they were trying to get out on a loophole, and it was a very old policy where they shouldn't have been able to do that. And I remember saying to my wife at the time, if this doesn't come through for the client, I'm quitting right here and now because I've just lost all faith in the industry. But that didn't happen. Thankfully for the client, I managed to just keep pushing and pushing until they got what they needed. And at the end of the day, I made sure that all the clients went to another financial planner that I really trust and had known for many years. So I left with a resolution that I knew they were going to be looked after. So that side of things was no longer a conflict. and I was happy to walk away.
Can I just say, you're a very unusual financial planner to be in that situation, that's for sure. Too many of them are out there, I think, sometimes wanting to go along and sell or push financial products versus actually doing the right thing by their clients. So I just want to honor and respect you for doing that, Rob. Do appreciate that. But thank you very much for sharing that, Rob. Do you have anything else you wanted to share or
No,
not?
that
Okay,
was all.
that's good. Fantastic. So here's a question. Why is it that entrepreneurs, and when I was sort of researching this topic and such, the thing I found was that they quit for a number of reasons. One is what the business is just a bad business. This didn't work. And that happens. And if you think about it, it happens in incredibly frequent. What is it? 90% of businesses fail in the first 3 years. Yeah, so it's to build a business as an entrepreneur is quite a difficult road to go down. It could be that it's just changing times. Maybe the opportunities ran dry or something like that. Let's imagine you're selling buggy whips back in the 1800s and the motor car comes along. You know what? You're not going to be selling many buggy whips anymore, are you? Because the motor car's there. Yeah, so things can change. Yeah, so there's different reasons why. Then we heard another one, which is values. Or another one is a personal happiness. Are we really happy? I think there's one more, and that's not just are we happy? Are the ones we really care about happy? Are they really happy? Michelle, I just want to come across to you with that. Like, you've been in business for a long time, many different businesses over those years. You've been involved with a whole lot of businesses as well in senior leadership roles. Have you seen situations where even members of a team or something like that you're being part of, where the reason why the person has quit is because not because of their unhappiness necessarily, but because they see loved ones are incredibly unhappy with the circumstances? Have you experienced something like that?
Yeah, I haven't not experienced it myself, but I certainly have seen people on the team experience that. And for us, I really believe it's hard to quit. It's hard to see somebody quit. So I think really it's a very mental drain and it's a very emotional drain. What I've observed is that when it's right time for somebody to quit, to move on, I don't even think of it so much like quitting in the negative connotation, but just that they need to move on. If they come and they have a conversation with us, or we see that they're struggling, either personally or with the work, we try to help them move on in a very positive manner. What I've seen is when someone is able to do that, they usually land in a better situation. And I'm not just talking about money. It could be money, but meaning that they're just happy. And quite oftentimes it's better for the business as well. Because at the end of the day, we have to look at the business holistically. And if people are unhappy or they just feel they need to move on, I think it's important to support them in a way that uplifts the team and where they don't feel like they've been raked through the coals on the way out the door. I'm a big proponent of making what I call a soft landing for them. So I think it's extremely difficult. I've quit jobs before, I've quit companies before. It's very emotional. And I think it's really important to be very kind and help people through that transition. And when you do, oftentimes they really do end up off better. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I think that one of the things that you said there really resonated with me is quitting is actually not a negative. And in fact, Jeff said that as well, where Jeff talked about the fact that it wasn't a negative because you had this sense of relief and everything like that. And then the world opens up before him. Yeah, you got a sense of that. And that we need to remove the stigma of making a balanced choice. I'm not talking about, hey, everyone has a bad day, right? Everyone's got a bad day or a bad week, whatever. But if you're really unhappy in the circumstances you're in, for whatever the reason, then quitting is not necessarily a bad. I remember many years ago, a friend of mine, he had a business, had to go into administration, and a very wise older guy said to him, "You're about to earn a whole lot of money today if you can do a deed of arrangement and things like that." And it was a very different way of looking at it versus this the trauma of the whole experience and all that sort of stuff. And sometimes we need to do the same thing when we look at our lives as entrepreneurs and we make the decision to quit, that's not necessarily a bad option to do. But anyway, I just want to just jump across to Wakar. It's wonderful to have you on the Complete Entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's all of a sudden a quick match that I have got to the right room at right point of time. I would like to tell you a bit about myself. I'm 35 and I have worked for 12 years of my life in professional corporate world, doing different jobs at managerial level until I came to the point of self-realization a couple of months ago. And it was a call from my creator that was so damn emotional that I wasn't able to control the energy that I got absorbed. It was like, how can I put it in words? It's getting downloaded an infinite amount of terabyte data on a nanosecond scale direct to your brain download. So it was like that, and it was magic, believe me, and my life totally changed out of that. Now I see from different perspective. I see abundance of opportunities. I see life as an opportunistic. I get away from toxic people. I get away from negative vibes, just like a genie. I'm attached to positive people, and I'm building a very huge disruptive global impact with my startup idea. It is in development. I live in Pakistan. It's a third world country, limited resources when it comes to the internet and professional development and social connections. But believe me, it will go big and it will hit across the globe. It will be a disruption, and you'll be feeling that coming too. Just like,
Wakar,
yeah.
can I just say it's fantastic to hear your enthusiasm. It's wonderful to hear this that you're so excited and that your eyes have been opened what it means to be an entrepreneur. I really thank you for your input there. We're coming to the downhill stretch though right now, so if you want to mute your microphone, do appreciate that. And it's great hearing from entrepreneurs from all around the world. Yeah, it really is. It's one of those exciting things about being a part of the Complete Entrepreneur. But one of the things I want to just touch on before we close off today's session is how can you stop yourself from quitting? Because sometimes maybe it's better not to quit. And when I reflected on my own experiences and also with all the different businesses I've been involved in over the years, and what I find is the 9 times out of 10, the reason why people quit is because they're trying to do too much. And that's 9 times out of 10. They're trying to do too much and there's a lack of focus. And if you're thinking to yourself, I'm really not happy and all that sort of stuff, I bet you it's because you're doing what's called thrashing. Thrashing is jumping from one task to another task without even finishing the first task. And so you've got all these tasks that are like half completed and you're feeling intensely unhappy about all of that. And you try to get back to them, but you're just doing too many things. Can I suggest what you do is you take some time out, you sit down with a piece of paper, you write all your tasks on them down, and then you realistically look at it and say to yourself, this is the job of 5 people. I'm one person. I need to pare this back and become focused, really focused. See, there's too many entrepreneurs. They try to do everything. And really, when they try to do everything, they end up doing nothing.
It
So be
never
very
happens. It
focused.
never happens with a single one man army. It's never a one man show. It is a group of like minded individuals who sync to the basic core values, to the same mission and vision. They can make an impact. Otherwise, it's nothing more than a flop scene.
Exactly what Kara. So I do appreciate your input on that. But that's the thing. Look at your list of to-dos and say, is this something that I really need to do? Or is this something I like doing? Or what is it? Yeah, and really focus on what needs to be done. I know, Michelle, you're a administrator, a business lady with supreme skills in this area. What's your thoughts around that? Do you agree with my sort of comments on that point? Hey, Michelle, there. Okay, I'll jump to Jeff with your own experiences. What's your thoughts on that point there, on really getting focused as an entrepreneur? And by getting focused, quite often that also brings you a lot more happiness as well.
Focus, of course, is very important. There's so many things going on. It's easy to get distracted. It's easy to be chasing something that keeps you busy but isn't actually moving your business forward. So it's not just focus, Michael. It's focusing on the right things and really understanding what are the 3 or 4 or 5 things that really are essential to move the business forward and make sure that you're focusing on those things. I'm not sure how that fits relative to the topic of quitting and when to quit, but certainly learning to focus on the right things is critical.
Yeah, I think, Jeff, my point was I was trying to make is that what I found is that quite often entrepreneurs who are intensely unhappy and they want to quit and everything like that, it's more often than not, it's because of a lack of focus on their part and focus on those right things. And so they're just not happy because they're never completing anything because they're trying to do way too much. They need to become focused. And if it's like a salve to quitting, is care about what you do, focus on the right things, and you'll probably find you have a much happier life. And you're not working 16 hours a day and things like that, but you're working a regular day, which means you have more time for your kids, more time for your loved ones and everything around you, more time for yourself for that matter. But more than that is the chances of your business being more successful suddenly goes up because you're focused. You're focused on the important things versus the myriad of other opportunities which will one day maybe come off. Just get that one going. That was what I was trying to illustrate there, Jeff. So,
Yeah.
Colin, do you want to just, sorry, Jeff. Jeff, go
No,
for
I
it.
was just say, yeah, I hear you and I understand that point. Just, I guess, in my case, in the story I told earlier, I was certainly focused on the right
Oh,
things.
yeah,
It's
that
just
was
they
didn't
weren't the
relate to
right
your
things.
case.
They weren't the right things for me anymore. I had to, but from the business standpoint, I was focused on the right things. It just wasn't right for me.
Yeah, but to your story or anything. But anyway, you've been listening to The Complete Entrepreneur, and let me tell you, we've had an incredible time discussing, which is quite often a taboo topic, and we can take this topic in a myriad of different directions, like all the topics we discuss on The Complete Entrepreneur. And it's something I know, I must admit, I've got a lot out of today and really appreciate the inputs from everyone on the panel with me, for those who are speaking as well that have come up from the audience. But more in particular, I'd just like to also thank the audience for being here. And it's great to have you here, and it really is wonderful. I just want to say thank you very much.
Mike,
Next,
I would like
just
to
before we look at next week, Waka, sadly, I don't have time right now. We're winding things up at the moment.
just a
Love to
quick
have you back
question.
here
Just a
next
quick
week.
question. As you're the seniors, I'll be asking a very quick question, straight on point. If you would like to give a yes or no, that's it.
The
Should
question
I?
is,
Yes. The question is that my vision is to end up the manipulation of giant corporations selling a piece of crap, charging high amount of price, and has no value of the product or service. And there are many more individuals who don't get the opportunity to sell their product in the same manner. So, should I be moving to states for that? Because the product, every visionary startup starts from.
just because the time constraints were here, so the question is, should you move to the United States because maybe there's more opportunities in the United States there? And my answer to you is categorically no. Make it work where you are, and then you can make it work in other places, but have it work where you are. So hopefully I've answered your question. But I just want to go along and just move on right now to what's going on with Startup.Club, Colin.
Honestly, I don't care about Startup Club right now. The company we have is my partners and I started 18 years ago. We have hundreds of employees in Mykolaiv, Ukraine. And the link above, the one that we have in the room here, this is an opportunity for you to help. You can look at this war, you can think about this war, you can be entertained by this war, but if you actually want to do something, donate $10, $20, $30. It helps us with the search engine, the heuristics, it helps keep us at the top of the link. I know Give, Send, Go put our campaign at the very top of their page. We're now their #1 campaign that they're focused on right now. This money is going to go directly to the people of Mykolaiv based on the efforts of my business partners and the infrastructure that we have there on the ground. I know we've already deployed tens of thousands of dollars in that city. So if you really want to make a difference, $10, $20, $30 really does make a difference, and we really could use your support. Thank you, everyone. Enjoyed the show.
Yeah, Colin, I think you brought our focus back to what's really important right now, and do appreciate that, is that what's going on in Ukraine and everything. And it'd be great to be able to see that number climb. So if you're in the audience, go to the Give, Send, Go link at the top of the page here and express your heart. Express your heart in donating to the cause there. And the money is going to be going straight into helping like the hospital and everything like that. And boy, do they need it, that's for sure. I'd just like to say thank you very much, Colin, for bringing and inviting Vlad on earlier today. To have relatives right in the middle of that area. And our heart and prayers go out to him as well, and all the people in Ukraine, and those impacted in Russia as well. We mustn't forget that there's people perishing on both sides, and there's sons and daughters and husbands and wives and things like that on both sides. Yeah. And yeah, it's a terrible situation. I pray, Colin, that you and the team, you can rescue your team as well in that area, and that they all manage to get away safely. That's for sure. I just want to finish up with today is the next week we're going to be looking at the entrepreneur's family. So I'd love to see you there at 5 p.m. Eastern Time next Thursday. What does it mean to actually have a successful business, but also a successful family? The entrepreneur's family.
So do we get
God
to meet
bless
your
you.
wife, Michael? Do we get to meet your wife? Let's make it
Yeah.
interesting. Let's make it interesting.
Oh, if I could possibly twist her arm, I'd love to have her on here. I really would. But I'll see if I can get her on. It'd be great, actually. Then you guys can go along and interview us. But anyway, the entrepreneur's family. But anyway, so I look forward to seeing you all next week, and God bless you all. Have a great week.
Be well. Thank you.